Should start coming in soon because it's 1 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'll just allow everybody to get in, and then we'll introduce our panelists and we'll get started. Thanks for turning up, everybody.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi guys.
Good afternoon.
I can see everybody rolling in now, so good. We'll give it a couple of minutes and then we'll get started. Just a note to everybody, we will try, if we've got time, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat box. And if we get time, we'll get around to them.
We could have played a quiz bit at the end of this, Phil, as well.
Oh, never miss an opportunity to promote your own product, Mark.
Never, not once, which is why I'm here.
For those who've just attended, as I said, we'll start in a couple of minutes' time, and if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat, and if we can get to them at the end, we'll get to them at the end. A couple of names I recognise. Hello to those people. Okay.
A couple of people from LinkedIn.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. We'll get going, and then as people join, they can see what's going on. Firstly, a big thank you to my 4 panelists who have given up their time today to tell us all about their experiences on Dragon's Den. Let me start with a brief introduction. In fact, I'll let them all introduce themselves. So if you could tell us your name and your company and when you were on, and then we'll go from there. So if we start, Emmy, do you want to start us off?
So my name is Emmy Faust. My company now is Emmy Faust Consulting. My company that I went on to Dragon's Den with was called Gaming Alerts. And Phil, you caught me out because I can't remember. I think it was 2005, but you know, don't you?
2007, I think it was.
2007. Thanks, Phil.
Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Reed. I am the founder of Proxy Smart Limited, and I was on the show last year.
Mark.
Hi guys, I'm Mark. I'm the founder of Quizbit, which basically started life to stop people cheating in pub quizzes, and has now grown into a bit of a monster used across business and charities and various other things. I was on in 2017, believe it or not.
Okay, and our final guest this morning, Brian.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. My name is Brian Smiley. I'm part of a company called Visa.com, and I was on Dragon's Den last year.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's try and do this chronologically. So the first question to everybody really is, how did you even get there? At what point did you consider being on, and what was the process to actually get there? So Chris, start with you on that one.
Well, I was actually contacted by a BBC researcher who'd seen that I'd won a few awards for my startup business, and asked me whether or not I was interested in participating in Dragon's Den. It's something that I'd not really considered, but at the time I was looking for investors and wasn't having much success, so I thought, why the hell not?
Okay, sounds good. So you were actually approached by them?
Yes, well, the BBC researchers were sort of touting around and found me, basically. So they contacted me directly and put the idea to me. At that point, a little bit of wheat came out, and then I agreed to go for it. So why not?
Okay, and Mark, I think you were approached as well, weren't you?
Yeah, the same thing kind of happened to us, a bit similar. We took part in something called Pitch Fest, which was over in York actually, and they put it to that we were approached after that, same as Chris really, asked to go on it, or asked to audition. We weren't put straight onto the show. and you have to go through all the auditions and everything else. And yeah, it was.
Okay, Brian, what about you?
Yeah, look, I was sitting in the car one Friday afternoon, and yeah, the same call as Chris and Mark. The guys were looking for potential new candidates to go on the show, and they'd seen what we were doing out there in the marketplace. We'd won competitions, awards, and liked what we had to do, liked what we were doing. So yeah, invited us on the show. Okay,
and Emmy, obviously you were a long time ago, so maybe was the process different back then?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I loved Dragon's Den. I started, watching it, and I kind of thought I just wanted to see if it was all real, and I wanted to see whether what the process was, and whether it kind of was a real thing. And at the time, we had just started running a media agency, and we had this kind of little project on the side that wasn't doing anything. So we didn't even need investment or want investment, but we just thought we'd apply with that business, kind of just sort of a discovery thing. And then, we got the call in for the audition, and then we obviously had to think about what we were going to ask for and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a mistake, not a mistake, but it was not really planned.
Okay. Mark, you mentioned a process after you'd sort of been approached. How did that pan out?
If I can remember rightly, there's an awful lot of due diligence that goes into it. So they ask for an awful lot. So a lot of it was over the phone, via email. There was a screen test over in Manchester, which was basically almost a sort of an audition process. But then after that, it was just very, very quick. It was there's a lot of back and forward. If anyone is thinking of applying for it, it's not a case of taking a phone call and agreeing to do it. There's a lot of work that goes in between saying yes and being on the show.
I think in terms of the time frame, it's a 12-month period from the time you actually get that phone call to getting your kind of first audition, and then subject to your first audition, how many other auditions you go for after that. But it's a 6-month period from the call to the actual audition, and then 6-month period from we like your audition, we think you're good, and you can go to being on the show. So it's 12 months from the actual phone call to being on the show.
But it was nothing like that for me. It was like, I think it happened so quickly. We had barely even written a business plan by the time we were on the show.
Wow.
I think I applied on a whim, got a call when we got called into BBC to see them, had a bit of a chat. They weren't sure, went in again. The next thing we know, I think probably a couple of weeks, probably like 2 weeks later, we were like pitching. I mean, we literally had very little time between hearing that we were going to go on and going on. It was probably not even a week. I suppose that's changed because that was in 2007. So 10 years before the rest of you, and I imagine there was nowhere near as many people applying for it then. So it was probably a much slicker, easier process.
The hardest thing for us was, that 12-month period. You're not allowed to mention anything about the show. So if you mention you're going to be on the show or anything to do with the show and you being there, you're not going to get to pitch. Your pitch is thrown out because if the Dragons catch wind that you're going to be on the show, there's a competitive advantage. You can search on social media, find out a bit about yourself, a bit about your company, and have the edge over one of the other Dragons. So trying to keep quiet about Dragon's Den for 12 months was a nightmare.
What about you, Chris? How was your timeline?
Yeah, fairly similar, quite a long period, a lot of due diligence, went down for an audition. They loved me. No, I'm kidding. But then it was quite a period before the actual filming. And as has been mentioned, you're not allowed to say anything, which was not too difficult for me. But my missus was less persuaded. She was telling everybody.
Oops. Okay, so Chris, let's stick with you. So, talk us through the day of filming. Then, how does that pan out?
Yeah, well, it's an early start. I filmed mine down in Manchester at the BBC studios down there. It's an early start. You get to the green room around about 6:30 in the morning. There's a lot of waiting around. You're not sure in terms of the order of play until you get there, kind of thing. It really depends upon the pitches and what kind of props that they've got. So there was a pitch before me that had this big sort of water fountain type thing, which was a big unit to get in and out of the studio. So there's a lot of sort of waiting around associated with following that. You're obviously quite nervous, so I spent the time pacing around rehearsing my pitch. But obviously, and the other thing is you get to meet the other people who are pitching that day, so that's quite nice. You're all in it together. But it's a very basic room, and it's not a lot of facilities there, so it's just a lot of patience, a lot of nerves, and then they take you in to do some filming.
So what time of day did you finally get in?
I went in around about 11:30ish, so it was
okay.
So
So not too bad. What about you, Brian? How was your day of filming?
My thing was really interesting because I went down there and I hadn't thought of failure. As far as I was concerned, we were going down there, we were going to get five dragons. So confidence wasn't an issue, and I wasn't stressed, I wasn't worried about it. But what I did find frustrating was the season I went on, they were looking to create more some more atmosphere around the pitches. They wanted to create more tension. So when I went down, it really hadn't been finalised what I was asking for. So I went on to Dragon's Den looking for £250,000 originally, and even on the day, literally 5 minutes before I walked into the den, we were still negotiating with the BBC as to what I should be asking for. And I said, look, I'm not going to drop it below £100,000 because it's just embarrassing. We've come all this way, I won't go in there and we'll ask for a reasonable amount of money. So that was the only frustrating part I had about my day. It's an early start. You go down there, as Chris says, you meet all the other businesses that are going in there. Some of them you really worry about, and some of them you just think, well, that's a great idea. But the whole day is really quite good fun. It's an emotional day across the board for everyone involved. So when we went in, we did our pitch. We came back out, and there's another 3 businesses that are there and having had pitched or about to pitch. We got swept away, and we got put into a completely different building because we were successful with our pitch. They didn't want to mix us with somebody that hadn't been successful because the emotions were just, it was just a bit of a nightmare because you had people that were crying, you had people that were, we've done really well. So we got isolated, put in another building, and that was a bit frustrating because we were left in a building for a couple of hours, having just been successful in winning a pitch. And then we got asked to stay behind. Peter Jones actually asked us to stay behind. So we had to wait till quite late in the evening to then meet with Peter Jones post the filming. So, but it was a good day. Really enjoyed it. It was good fun.
Okay, you've gone a bit ahead there, Brian. You've given the game away. We're going to keep it secret as to whether you got the money or not. Okay.
Well, I'm not quite giving the game away.
All right. Okay. Mark, how was your day? I think you've told me before it was quite a long day, wasn't it?
So actually, it was a long day in terms of, I suppose, it felt like a long day. It wasn't. I was actually one of the first ones on. So like the guys, it was a very early start. It was about 6:30 in the morning. Over to Manchester, what was almost like a huge aircraft hangar, pretty much. You go in, you've got your products, you work that through with the runners and the researchers. I actually got to do my pitch to the runners and the researchers to check that all my tech worked. And I got so many oohs and ahs and how amazing this was, and I was absolutely on top of the world, ready to go into there, which I still enjoyed it. But that went really, really well. Then, as Chris says, we were then taken over to a green room, put in the green room, and I got put. There was the guys in there that were going to be obviously pitching as well. And there was a guy that was in my green room who was absolutely bonkers, who was extremely arrogant, extremely, I'm going to take over the world with, I forget even what it was. I think it was some form of tech alarm clock. I did see his episode, and unfortunately he did do what I thought would happen, and that was he made himself look rather silly. But it was, so that was interesting. But it was all quite quick after that. The bit that I will say was that they film you the first bit, the bit where you do your in the lift. They film that first. They then take you back up to the green room, and then you, as Chris says, we walk around practicing your pitch, and then you go down. And that bit where
stop. We're getting the exciting bit in a minute. Emmy, tell us about running up to the pitch.
Running up to the pitch, was doing it with my business partner, Ed. I basically dragged him into this whole process. I applied and he didn't even know I'd applied. So when we finally were coming on, he was like really not happy about it at all. And I don't think he wanted to be there. But we got there at 7 in the morning. I think we got ourselves there and went to the green room. And luckily for us, we were the last people on because can you believe it? I still actually hadn't finished off doing all the numbers, which would value our business at £2 million to get 200 grand investment. So, well, I think I'd done the figures, but I couldn't remember them all. I couldn't remember all the net profits and everything. So I basically spent the day learning that. I was doing all the figures, and I don't know what Ed was doing. Ed was kind of annoyed that we were wasting a whole day in this green room when he didn't want to be there. And then, yeah, I think that was the thing. I think there was like 2 or 3 of us left, and it was like 6 o'clock. And I was thinking, oh, please, can we just go on? Because there's no way Ed was going to go back and do another day. No way. And luckily, it was probably the best thing for us because we got seen that day, because otherwise we wouldn't have gone back. Ed wouldn't have allowed it, I don't think. And we had all day to prep for it. And yeah, we were the last people on at about 6 o'clock at night. And I think they just took us down a little buggy and in we went.
Right. Okay. So Mark, I cut you off there. So you've done all your practice. You start the lift door opens.
Yeah.
And you've got a little secret to tell everybody about the lift. The lift door opens, and then what happens?
Well, do you know what? There's a secret, but there's also a secret which worked out really well for me, because I got stuck in a lift a few years ago. I've got a bit of a phobia against lifts, so that's the one bit I was worried about. But thank God it wasn't a real lift. It was just some fella with a big red button that presses and the doors open. So that's the first thing that is the spoiler.
So it's not a real lift.
Not a real lift, but you go in, you press your button, you do the things, you look up, you look around. I was in there for quite a while actually, even before you go in. Obviously they filmed part of that before, because you've got to see you walking out to the camera. The next part is you're in there basically, and then you pitch what you see.
How did that feel when you walk out? Because obviously, we're friends. I know you. I was sat on the sofa watching it, and I was shitting it just watching you. What's it like when you just stood there?
To be honest with you, at the first in the lift, it is scary. So you think, oh, do you know what? And one of my biggest fears was coming across as arrogant, or coming across as someone that was just trying to, sell to these guys or whatever. So I was quite conscious of everything around me, and quite conscious of how I was thinking it was going to come across. The one thing that you're not prepared for is when you walk out, it's, and I can't describe this enough, it's the amount of cameras, the amount of whirring, the amount of lights, the heat, it's absolutely crazy. Literally, there's cameras everywhere. There's people in gantry. It felt like you were on the stage at Glastonbury almost as such. Now, for me, that's good because I don't mind the stage. So once you start, then as I got going, as I started and got into my pitch, I absolutely loved it, and started, going through all that. And then obviously, if you've seen my episode, I talk far too much and went on past, and Deborah cut me off, and then we go into the thing. But what you see is 10 minutes. In reality, I was in there for just over an hour.
Wow.
You hit it on the head there. That was one thing I was really surprised about. There was a question I asked just before I walked into the den. How long are we going to be in here for? And I went on the assumption, I don't know why, but I went on the assumption we're going to be in there for 15 minutes. I've never done a pitch in my life asking for money that's taken 15 minutes. And the woman, she turned around and said to me, "You've been there for as long as it takes." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, look, we've had pitches in there that have lasted 5 minutes. I mean, the longest one has been 4.5 hours. And that was the only moment I thought I actually got a bit of a shake-up, was that was the length of time that it could take. But yeah, I was not totally naive to. I was thinking in and out in 15 minutes. Why, I don't know. What did
it feel like for you? Because the thing, obviously, Emmy and yourselves, you were with somebody else, whereas obviously Chris and Mark were on their own. So again, question to you, Brian. The lift opens. What does that feel like?
Look, for me, it was like, well, I knew them already because I've been watching the program for years. So walking into that room, you knew these people. That's the way I looked at it. So I didn't get a fright. I wasn't taken back. I wasn't startled. Wasn't starstruck. I just walked to the point where we needed to stand, and we did our pitch. So there was familiarity there for me. That's the way I looked at it. I just opened the doors opened, as you said. It's not a lift; it's a corridor. The doors opened. Yeah, I know these people. These people are the people I've been watching for over 10 years now on this show. So there wasn't any nerves there. And the hardest thing I found about that room was actually standing on the spot. So there's a specific spot you have to stand on. And me and my colleague, we kept drifting. We were drifting like 2 or 3 meters away from the spot. So we keep stopping. You have to go back to the spot again. And then we drift again, away back, sort of shuffle sideways. I don't know why we kept shuffling. It was like the room was on a slant. But yeah, no, it was really good. I walked out the den and said it was familiarity. That's the way I looked at it.
Yeah. Chris, how was it for you?
Well, I had a tactic when the lift doors were about to open. I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look Deborah Meaden in the eye, crack a smile, put a bit of charm on. I got nothing back. She basically looked me like I was nothing basically. I was going to use some language there, and I just went, oh God, that didn't work. So my head sort of, if you watch the program, my head goes down, and it's like Brian said, you're trying to find the mark. So what they do is they tape a little black cross on the floor to where your mark is, where you need to stand. And I couldn't bloody see this thing. I'm like walking up, like with my head down, looking for this bloody mark, and gets to the mark, and then I look up, and then I saw all 5 dragons. I went, oh, this is real now. This is kind of, it's game on sort of thing. So yeah, it was a failed tactic to try and smooth Deborah Meaden a little bit, which failed dismally. So that set the tone for me, and I was off and running after that. But
and Chris, I hope you don't mind me saying this. Watching your episode, the heat of the lights got to you a little bit.
Yeah. It's as Mark says, there's a lot of cameras, a lot of lights. It's very hot in there, and you're not allowed to break. They don't stop and say, "Are you okay? Do you want to mop your brow or anything, or take a drink or anything?" I was talking about the length of time. I was in for just over 2 hours, and.
Wow.
And there was no break in that. So I started to sweat within about 10 minutes, and then it just kept coming and kept coming. The edited version it cuts between probably an hour 40 in, and that's when I'm absolutely drenched, and there was a puddle on the floor. Oh no, I'm joking about the puddle, but yeah, I think it was tough because, like I say, the lights and the heat of the studio are very hot, and like I say, it's the fact you don't get a chance to have a break and have a drink or mop your brow or whatever. So I had a little handkerchief in my suit, and I kept mopping my brow. Well, that was great for the edit, because it looks as though I'm bricking it, and it looks as though I'm really, they're thinking, oh, this guy's under real pressure because he's sweating and he's mopping his brow kind of thing. It wasn't. I was just literally struggling in the heat. So it was.
Yeah. Emmy, you mentioned that Ed was having the same trouble as well, stood next to you.
I think that's one of their tactics. It makes it a bit more exciting. It was so hot, and the light was like someone else was saying, there was so many lights. It's literally, they were everywhere, and cameramen everywhere, and it was. I mean, I don't remember being really hot, but yeah, I remember Ed asking if he could take a break, and I think they did give him some water or something. But like Chris was saying, I can't remember how long we were in there. It was quite a long time. I don't think it was as strict as what I can't remember us having red spots on the floor that we had to stand on. I think it was probably a bit different back in 2007. But yeah, Ed was definitely struggling with that, and I kind of think, oh, it's just not a very nice thing to have to do, is it, to stand there in that boiling heat when you're also trying to pitch a business to 5 people. It's kind of not, I don't know, doesn't seem like a very nice way, but maybe they just can't help it being hot. Yeah. Just really quickly, because oh my gosh, something's going mad outside of the wind. I didn't come out through the lift. We came up the stairs, and I can't remember if we filmed that first or afterwards, but I remember we went up the stairs. Definitely, there wasn't a lift when we were there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I remember there being a stairs in the first few series. Okay, so you've all done your pitch. So you're obviously in there, and obviously the highlight of the show is the negotiation part. So I want to start with Brian, because having watched Brian's, I don't know if everybody's watched Brian's or not, but Brian, talk us through your negotiation, because I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Well, you know what, it was really frustrating for me, because so there was no nerves pre-den, there was nerves post-den, and the nerves post-den came from the actual kind of the negotiation element of my pitch and the edits, because I gave them plenty of material for them to really edit it, to have fun with the edit. So I missed the trick. Peter Jones, we'd done the pitch, and we come to the negotiation stage. And in fact, the way the edits played on TV, broadcasted, isn't the order that the negotiation took place in. So they've done that for TV purposes. But Peter Jones and I went sort of hammer and tongs for a good 10 minutes around the valuation of the business and what my plans were for the business. And Peter Jones, in one breath, said, look, this is a fantastic investment opportunity for any investor, and they're going to get a really quick return on their money, and a good return on their money. And in the same breath, he then said, without negotiating, he then said, and we then made an offer which was only 3 times more than I'd offered of the company. At that point, I should have said, look, Peter, you just said, you said this a minute ago, this was a fantastic investment opportunity. prior to negotiating, and now you're asking for three times more than what we're willing to offer. So I missed the trick on that front, and I really beat myself up about that for months afterwards. Really, I mean, it was a horrible thing to have to go through mentally. As I say, we were really confident. I was really confident we were going to get 5 out of 5 dragons. So I cannibalised the last one, which was Jenny, by highlighting the fact we had a sportsman's bet prior to going in there. But at the end of the day, I'd already had the dragons, the 2 dragons that we had four solid offers, but the 2 dragons that I wanted across, with offers on the table. In hindsight, I probably should have maybe gone with Tej's offer. But you know what? It's we're all geniuses in hindsight. You know, in the white heat of the den, it's quite a difficult thing to do, is to negotiate with those guys. And I think there's an element of bullying goes on in the den, and obviously the valuations really don't stack up in the den either, which is a bit frustrating. That's the only element I didn't really enjoy about Dragon's Den, was the negotiation element of it. I don't think it's very fair how they go about that, and I think there's an element of bullying goes on with that. But other than that, I think the day was good fun.
But you got 4 out of 5, and then in effect you said to I think it was Tej and I can't remember the other one was.
So I toughed a couple.
You basically said I don't want your money. I'm only talking to Deborah and Peter.
Yeah, that's right. So I wanted to turn it on its head a little bit, and rather than them saying that they were out, I'd tell them, well, you guys are out because we're not that interested in the skills that you bring to the table. So yeah, I say Peter Jones and Deborah Meaden were the 2 that I really went down there to bring on board into the company. Peter Jones primarily, just pure and simply because of his background. He could add the most value to our business. But in hindsight, Tej was asking a lot of very interesting questions. But you've got to ask yourself, why are they asking certain questions? And they're asking certain questions because Joe Public sitting at home really may not understand your business. So it might come across as a really stupid question. Peter Jones might say, well, what is Wix.com? You think Peter Jones should know what he's probably asking that just to clarify it for somebody sitting at home. What's Wix? Tell us what that is, Brian. So you've got to get that. You've got to understand that. And there's a lot to process. A lot to process while you're standing there on your feet with a film crew there, 5 dragons sitting in front of you. It's just a lot to process. And you've got to be really good thinking on your feet, very quick at thinking on your feet. We actually went to the back of the room twice. You only see one. We were facing that wall twice during our pitch, and right. It's a tough experience. And Peter Jones, that was the reason he actually wanted to meet. We obviously accepted an offer from Peter Jones. He wanted to meet me afterwards, and the first thing he said to me when I walked up to him was, well done, well done in your negotiations, Brian. That's like no normal negotiation. That's I really appreciate that. That was tough, and so that was nice. It's nice to hear that. But it's definitely an interesting way to go about raising money for your business. Yeah. And it's certainly not something I'd like to do again, that style of negotiation. It's right. Very gung-ho.
So the one dragon you didn't get an offer from was Jenny. So let's just talk to Chris. Talk us through your negotiations.
Similar to Brian, I just want to reiterate how tough it is after you've been basically kicked for 2 hours to then start a negotiation process. My attitude going into the den was, if I got an offer, I would take it. So I wasn't really interested in the stage my business was at. I'm still very early stage at that point. It was a great profile lift for the business, etc. And I knew what a dragon could do. Now, I didn't get to have a fight between 5 dragons. All the dragons dropped out fairly quickly, one after another, towards the end of the 2 hours. And like I said, by the time it got to negotiating, I was battered. I was done. I was just wanting to get out of there. I just thought, no, take it. Let's get out. I'll change my mind. I don't care. Whatever. No, seriously. So I literally went to the wall and pretended I was thinking about it. But all I wanted to do was go to the wall to wipe my bloody head, which was sweating. And I did this thing where I talked to the wall and then came back and just said, Jenny, yeah, I'll take whatever you've offered. That's no problem at all. Let's get on. And make
right.
So
right.
It's my negotiation technique.
Mark, I know, obviously, all right, I won't give it away, but Mark, tell me about your negotiations.
Mine were quite comical. I didn't get investment in the end. As much as I think still to this day, and what I went through, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it did go very well. We had some really good conversations. they didn't get what we were trying to do. You know, the angel or the investor, this is the same with any investment, whether it's Dragon's Den or whether you're pitching in the real world. You know, the investor's got to get what you do, and they've got to be bought into what you do. Unfortunately, the 5 people in front of me weren't bought into what I did. In terms of the negotiation, in terms of the way that I performed, obviously I didn't get to do the negotiation thing, because I got to the point where, you know, those dragons that I was speaking to were out. But one of the things that I suppose in hindsight that I wish I'd done more of is I became quite passive. After a while, it's, as Chris and the guys have all said, it's tough. It's really tough. And they ask you some really, really, really tough questions. I had about 15 questions in my head that they were going to ask me in that den. And they were about valuation, my IP, my background, various other things. They didn't ask me any single one of them. They asked me questions like, what would you do if I got a text message during the game? Which I wasn't prepared for. Now, I answered that with quite a comical answer. And like Chris looked to Deborah for a bit of a reaction to a jovial joke, if you will. I tried the same thing and got a stern look as if to say, basically, that wasn't what I asked you, carry on. Otherwise, you're going to get out of this den very quickly. So it became very, very apparent that they weren't willing to play fun, really. Some of them were, and we had, you know, like I say, I was in there for over an hour and had a lot of fun in there doing it. But no, I didn't get to the negotiation stage, but just in terms of the negotiation or the conversations that I had, no matter what you prepare for, you're never going to be prepared for what they're going to ask you, because they're there, you know, to challenge you and to ask you questions. And some of those questions you just cannot envisage. And because of, you know, as I said at the beginning, I didn't want to come across as arrogant or as I know it all, or to try and fight back as such. Because you're conscious of the fact that you're surrounded by cameras. You're conscious of the fact that all your friends and family are going to be watching this at some point. You're conscious of the fact that, you know, other people will, whichever way you look at it, form an opinion on you from what you are saying. So for a while, I was very much a bit like, I don't want to come across as I know more than you. Therefore, I did become rather, okay, I'll take that and we'll move on. Whereas I should have really fought that little bit harder, a little bit more to take it further. But as I say, if an investor doesn't get what you're doing, they're not the right investor for you.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's an interesting point, Mark, about becoming passive. You know, not wanting to come across as being too arrogant, too cocky. Was I maybe a little bit too cocky myself? You know, I actually woke up one night, and no exaggeration, I'm in my bed. It's like a scene out of The Exorcist. I woke up and I just straight away my head in my hands like this. You know, boof, and a moment of shock, a moment of horror. And I just thought of, my God, this is going to come across really, 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 really badly on TV. And I just thought, I torched it. It was a horrible moment. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, lying in bed, woke up, head in my hands, and thought, what have I done? Fortunately, the edit was good. But yeah, it's an interesting point Mark makes there.
And then final question on negotiation for Emmy, because Emmy, your negotiation was slightly odd, wasn't it?
In what way?
In the way that Theo basically asked you to put an offer to him, didn't he?
Well, you've obviously, I haven't watched it since I went on, but what I remember.
I'll tell you shall I tell you what happened?
Everyone always says this to me. I can't bear to watch myself because it's just so awful.
Theo said to you and Ed, go to the wall and come back and give me another offer for not what you're asking for. And then you did it again. You had to do it twice. Yeah.
I mean, just very quickly, so when I did this application to apply to Dragon's Den, and they said, how much are you applying for? And I just put 200K, because I thought that's quite a good amount of money. How much do you want to give away? I put 10%. So then when they came back, I was like, okay, so I need to value my business at 2 million quid, because I'm giving away 10% for 200 grand. Our business hadn't made any money. It had only been going for about a year, 6 months or a year or something. So it was kind of slightly unrealistic to probably ask for that. But what someone else on the panel, I can't remember who said it, but Theo, we were pitching an online comparison site for online bingo and online poker and online sports betting. And Theo obviously realised that it was a big, market, and loads of people were starting to play online bingo, and it resonated with him. And I think that's why he probably invested. But yeah, I mean, we were totally happy to give away 30% because that was valuing the business at 700 grand, and we hadn't actually made any money. So we were happy. And then what someone else had also said, once that had happened, there's quite a lot of hanging around, and then you all go outside, and we met up with all the dragons afterwards. all of them. I think all of them were there just to say well done and, you know, have a little chat. And yeah, that was it. Thanks for reminding me.
You got to chat with all of the dragons afterwards.
I remember like Deborah and Peter saying, "You were amazing. You were really good. It was really good, but you know, it wasn't right for us." I think we also, because we had another business that we were running at the same time, a lot of the dragons didn't, you know, think that was attractive, and I totally get why. I probably wouldn't invest in someone that had two businesses because they want to know that you're going to focus on the one they're investing in.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were all outside, and I just remember having a nice chat with them all.
Well, that's quite a big contrast to what you've told me before, Mark, haven't you? So you finished. You obviously didn't get your money. Then what happened?
I was kicked out. It kind of was really. So I left there, and again, I was actually quite chuffed when I left. I know I didn't get the investment, but you know, I'd had a great time. You know, I had some great feedback, and I come out of there, and I was relatively happy. Obviously didn't get the investment, but again, relatively happy with how we came across. We were then taken from there, and this is the God's honest truth. We were taken to a room which had no windows in it, and I was put in that room, and it was almost like in a doctor's surgery. And it was from I went from this plush green room to this room with no windows. I thought, okay, so this is where they send the reject. I sat there, and then also. And this was rather strange. All of the equipment that I'd had obviously wasn't in this room. They said, "Oh, your equipment's somewhere else. We're going to take you through, you know, thank you for coming along and everything else. We're going to take you to do an outro." So I had to go and do one outro where they filmed me and we had to talk about my experience and everything else. And again, that was fine. Taken back to this darkened room. And then I was told that I would be taken outside to where my stuff was. And then at some point, there must have been a break in filming. So the dragons were coming out of where they were filming. I forgot where I was down some corridor. And they basically said, "Stop there." Stop. You know, it was almost like you can't look at the dragons. You can't, you know, and they had to, and I had to stop while they had to walk past. I was like, "Morning." And then, you know, gave them a little wave, and then I was taken outside. And then all my stuff was given to me in a box. As if I'd been kicked out of home and said, you know, "Thank you very much," and sort of away you go. And then I drove off, and then first thing I did was ring Holly, ring my wife, and I said, "Yeah, we're all right, we did get the investment," and so on and so forth, and then went home, and then that's it. That is literally it. And then you wait for the phone call to say when your episode's going to be.
Yeah. So Brian gets a long chat with Peter Jones. Emmy gets a chat with all of them. You get thrown out the back door with a box of stuff.
I get a darkened room and a cardboard box.
How was your post filming, Chris?
Yeah, it was fine. I wanted to meet Jenny. She'd arranged to meet me afterwards. I just had to, as Mark says, you film like your outro bit, the bit where you see on the program, the very last sort of cut. So you film that bit and then you wait around. But I was waiting to see the dragon that had invested in me. So I met Jenny afterwards, spent a little bit of time with her talking about what would happen next. And she was much nicer off camera. She's a cracking lass. So yeah, that was that. And then obviously once that was done, it was off you go and start telling people the news, you know, your nearest and dearest kind of thing. And then you're waiting for the broadcast. But as Brian says, you have no control over the edit. And there was bits that thankfully they left on the cutting room floor for me.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about that then. So what happens? They sort of ring you and say you're on next week, and then
yeah, I've got it.
What's it like sitting watching yourself on telly? Chris, we're with you. Let's talk through that then.
Yeah, well, I got an email saying when a couple of weeks before the broadcast was going to be happening, and you're obviously watching the series broadcast. My program was actually the last in the series as it happens, but you don't know that. So they only tell you a couple of weeks before the broadcast. And I've been watching every program. And then the week before mine was due to broadcast, they had a trailer for the following week. And they had a snippet of my appearance. And in it, it just focused on, I don't know if you remember, but basically I'd had a previous business which had collapsed and I'd lost everything. So this snippet basically said, "This guy's lost £500,000. That was it. I left it like that. And I was like, I went, "Oh my God, the edit is going to be car crash TV. They're just going to focus on my previous business failing. They're going to set me up for a fall basically." I mean, I knew what the outcome was, but I didn't know how that was going to come across. And I spent that week, as Brian mentioned, it's really tough because I was thinking the whole nation's going to look at me and think, what a tit. So that was my sort of, but then it broke us. So we had a few friends rent our house. We had a bit of a Dragon's Den themed party. We all got pissed. We all watched it and had a good laugh at me sweating my buckets. And it was surreal because obviously you're kind of watching yourself and realizing that there's, you know, about 10 million other people watching you at the same time. And then your phone starts to go. And that's the bit I remember. And my website crashed and my emails crashed and it was just chaos that evening. And for the next couple of days, that was the bit I definitely remember. But it was a bit surreal, but I was nice and rosy and hungover the next morning, so I was quite happy.
Fantastic. So Brian, you mentioned that already. Go on, talk us through the night it was on.
Yeah, so I was much the same attitude as Emmy. I mean, I couldn't bring myself to watch it. And I was like, because of the edit, you don't know how the edit's going to, you know how that edit's going to be cut and what they're going to show. So I thought, I'm going to come across as a total arsehole here, so I can't watch this. So anyway, the office, they got the shareholders into the office and staff in the office, and I was told under no certain I had to be there. So I went up to the office and it was put on, and you know what? Actually, it was a big smile on my face. It was a good edit. I was really happy with that. And interestingly enough, despite how that edit comes across, or you come across, there's a lot of value in being on Dragon's Den. I think that there was Oxford or Cambridge University did a research study on it, and it equates to £1 million worth of marketing spend on one episode. So to have that exposure is absolutely fantastic. And same with Chris. Our website, we had over 140,000 hits on the website that evening, and we could watch. It was great because you have the dashboard, your analytics dashboard monitoring the traffic, and we could watch it real time. And just watching 140,000 hits coming into the Beazle website was just awesome. It was really good. It was really, and I said the evening where we sat in the office and we all sort of sat down together and watched it. It was good. But more importantly, I think it was an opportunity for me to be able to showcase that Brian actually does something. There's a bit of substance to Brian, to my friends, because I spent the last 7 years in Australia building a business and selling it, and then coming back here. Nobody had seen what I do. It's just they only get to see Brian on a social level. So it was good from that point of view. If I'd crashed and burned, I think I would have left the country.
Mark, talk us through your night and tell it, because I remember seeing you on the credits, like Chris said. I saw you the week before. Went, oh, Mark's gonna be on next week.
Yeah, so a bit the same, really. I mean, when we went on, we were very sort of early stage, as in really just stuck the beta test out, and we weren't really prepared for what was going to happen. But so in terms of the website, we wrapped up the servers on the website to get all that ready. We got ready for that. We had the phones ready, and we thought, okay, let's see what happens here. I was more nervous about the actual waiting for the TV show to come on than I was for the actual coming out of that lift, to be honest with you, because as Brian says, it's you're nervous about. No matter what anybody says, you want people to like you. You don't want to come across as something that you're certainly not. I'm very lucky to have a great family and friends and lots of support around me. So, they all know who I am, but you don't know what they're going to put out on that TV, of which will then give everyone an opinion of whatever it is they want that opinion to be. I sat with Holly and the kids and watched it, kind of behind the sofa, a little bit like these guys. My little boy found it fascinating that his dad was on the telly. That was the best bit, to be honest with you. The kid was just pointing at the telly. But yeah, it was nervous. The biggest thing for me was literally that thing would just ping, 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 ping every literally 2 minutes. I mean, when the snippet was on the week before, as you said, Phil, Facebook went mad with people that had seen it, and I didn't realise how many people that I know actually watched the blooming thing, because Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It wasn't Quizbit's Twitter, it was my own, that people were going, I've just seen you. Is that you? People were recording it, taking pictures of it, putting it on Facebook and going, that's you, isn't it? I was like, yeah. And it was like, so then you've got this week of that sort of madness going on. Teamed with that, we had a competitor actually out there in the marketplace who we are completely different to them, but they'd taken it upon themselves to think that what we'd done is basically we were doing what they did, which was really tough. And what they did was they started a big campaign against us. So we had to deal with all of these keyboard warriors out there that were turning around going, how dare you go on with this, and it was absolutely crazy. After it was basically they had to come out there and say, actually, no, that's nothing like what we do. We got that wrong. But in between all that, it was just, it was the amount of attention that it got. Honestly, you can't even describe it. It's just mad. And I didn't realise, I've watched it and I like the show, but I didn't realise how big it was until actually you realise that you're on the bloody thing.
It's the second largest show. It's their second most popular show on the station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I wish I could go on it again now, because we weren't even set up to to have the sales through the site and everything else, and we got tons and tons of hits and tons of users, but we're so much more prepared for it now from a marketing and product phase to where we were then. It's kind of like, we did, but I wouldn't change it. I did what we did, and we've still got amazing things that have happened from it. But yeah.
Emmy, sorry to cut you off there, Mark. Emmy, obviously it was a while ago, and I know you said you've not watched it since, but
it was very different for us, because I think, hearing you all talking about Facebook and you see your Google Analytics in real time. I mean, we're talking about 13 years ago. I don't even know if Facebook existed then. I mean, it probably was just coming out of the closet, just starting to exist. But we were on, they showed a very, very short clip of us and barely kind of even explain what we were doing, probably because it was an online gambling comparison site and they didn't want to talk about that. And they didn't show a huge amount. There was a very tiny clip, I remember that. And I don't think it really did anything for our business, apart from it got a few, like Mark was saying, it got a few other affiliates. So a few other people that were doing something similar. Phil was doing something similar at the time. And Phil and some of the other people went on to have massively successful businesses. So I don't think we did value it a bonkers amount, even though it seemed like we did. But some of the other affiliates who obviously weren't happy that we were sort of going out there and potentially getting, traffic and PR and stuff, they obviously didn't like it. And I think, what was the downfall of us, which we'll come into later, probably was the fact that we went on Dragon's Den, because kind of we put our head above the parapet, and obviously other people that were doing similar things, someone obviously didn't like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember having loads of phone calls or texts or the website. I don't really think there was. The impact for us was getting the money from Theo, not the PR. I thought it'd be a lot more. I thought we'd be getting I thought we'd have had a lot more coverage from it, and we didn't at all.
Okay, so let's stick with that. So, okay, you've been on the show. You got 200 grand from Theo. Talk us through what happens with the business from that point.
Well, before we took the 200 grand, I remember we went to have dinner with Theo because we wanted to talk to him. We were already running a successful business already, and kind of we wanted to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So we had dinner. We ended up moving our media agency and this business into the same office as Theo's, but different offices, but same buildings. Because I think, it was good for us to all be nearby. And things kind of went quite well to start with. We got we always used to hire really good placement grads from Bournemouth University, and we had some of them come and work for us. We started creating lots of great content. This was at the time when SEO, search engine optimization, getting yourself ranking in the search engines was like a bit of a dark art, and no one knew what to do, but other people who had similar websites to us did know what to do. And we enlisted an agency to help us with that search engine optimization, and we ranked number one for lots of the key search terms, and we were doing really well, generating lots of revenue. And one day we got penalized in Google because the agency that we were using were obviously doing things that in Google's eyes wasn't, good. And I think because we didn't understand the landscape of SEO and how it all worked, we hadn't realized that that could have been an option. And and I imagine, I don't know, did someone report what we were doing, or did Google find out? I don't know, but unfortunately, using an agency that we thought were experts, and maybe they thought what they were doing was okay, who knows. But anyway, we lost the business, we lost the traffic, which was the business, overnight. And whatever we did to try and get that back, we could never get that ranking again. We had obviously 10k of costs coming out every month. Should I continue what happened?
Go on, carry on.
So then we were like, let's do something else. Let's use the money for something else. And we decided to launch an online bingo site in Spain, because it was a toss up between the Scandi region and Spain, and we were advised to do Spain, and we did that, and it just didn't seem to take hold. And in the end, we decided to, you know, cut our losses and all say this was a not a great situation. And, you know, we gave Theo the rest of the investment that we had left back, and he gave it to his charitable foundation, and we all left on, you know, relatively, what I'd say, really, you know, good terms. We were in his office. We helped him with recruited e-commerce person for his, you know, digital business and stuff like that. So it just happened as it did, which was really unfortunate. And, you know, massive lesson out of that is to always understand, you know, I totally think you should use experts and you should always outsource to experts, but you do have to have some understanding of what that expert's doing. You can't just totally outsource something to someone. And you know, that's why now I'm really keen on helping businesses find the right agencies to do stuff, because your business life can be in their hands, basically.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised about that, because you would have thought Theo would have a legal team around about him that could really have taken that agency to court over the black hatting issues that they had with Google.
I just don't think, you know, I'm sure Theo just wouldn't have wanted to get involved in that. I mean, I think the fact that, you know, online bingo, obviously loads and loads of people are playing online bingo and loads of people are playing the lottery and, you know, putting a bet on the football and everything, but I'm not sure how much he'd want to go down that road of making a fuss. I don't know. It is what it is. We learned a lot. You know, to be honest, I've only started talking about Dragon's Den in the last year and a half because someone asked me to go on a podcast. I kind of totally written it off. Felt like it was a bit of a failure, but it wasn't a failure. It was amazing to secure the funding, and it was great learning. You know, we were very young. We were only 27 at the time, and we were running another business, so we had so much going on. But we did learn a lot, and I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, I'm just, you know, it is what it is.
Okay, Brian, you got investment from Peter.
Yeah.
Is he still on board?
No. So what happened with us? We went back to the we got offers from 4 of the 5 dragons, and we sort of narrowed it down, sort of focused our energies on Peter Jones. I took someone into the den because, like Mark says, you never know what they're going to ask. So if I've got someone there next to me, we kind of split the kind of business in half. You deal with all the questions that could potentially come up with, you know, operational side. I'll deal with all the marketing side. And that way we can cover off more potential eventual questions. So I had someone next to me. The challenge I had was the person next to me had no share or interest in the business. He was an employee of the company. So when it came to asking the question, what do you think I should do? He really carried no weight. And I think he was really taken back at the kind of negotiations side of the day. He was lost. He was a bit lost during that point. So when I asked him, what do you think I should do? He said, I looked at me, his eyes were sort of really starry-eyed. He had no idea. So what I decided to do was, I thought, if I walk away having rejected all the offers, which I was really close to doing, and that's what I wanted to do, I turned to you and I said, look, Ewan, I think I'm going to reject all the offers. He panicked and he said, don't do that. Don't be crazy. Don't do that. And suddenly that caught me off guard, because now I'm in control of what I'm doing, and the reason I'm going to do is, it's like that carrot and a stick, you know, or a magnet. If you kind of push, if you pull something away, they're going to want it more. Whereas you push it to, you know, so that the idea there was, we're going to reject all the offers, and that will make them want it more. Or someone from the outside will actually say, someone from the outside watching the show might come towards us and say, look guys, we saw you on the show, you got offered, this is a good idea, we'll maybe get made an offer outside the den. Instead, because of Ewan's reaction to me wanting to reject the offers, I then sort of rationalised in my head, well, maybe it's good to be at the table. So if I accept an offer in the den, I can go outside the den, post today's filming. I can then negotiate because I'm still at the table with Peter. So, you know, you've got to think about 80% of the businesses that go on Dragon's Den that get made an offer actually don't follow through with the investment. So there's only a small amount of businesses that actually follow through and take that money into their company. And some great businesses don't actually even get past the initial interview. You know, a good example of that, I think, is something like, what's that beer company called? Brewdog. You know, those guys didn't even get past the initial interview. So, and there's some great businesses that have gone on and the Dragons have just completely missed. I think Just Eats or Hungry House, one of the two. So yeah, Peter was quite fascinating because when we got post-den, we'd accepted the offer. One of Peter's right-hand men, John, I think his name was, contacted us and started to go through the due diligence again and make sure everything was in order, which it was. And he's actually said Peter Jones is going to put his name on your shareholder register, which is the first time he's ever done that. So that was a really flattering thing. It was a really good thing for us, and really it was kudos for us that Peter Jones was willing to do that. But at the end of the day, we just couldn't agree terms, and the devil's in the detail. So we opted not to go for Peter Jones's investment in the end, and we've decided just to keep plodding along and doing what we're doing and growing the business organically. And we're in the market just now looking for a couple of £1 million at an appropriate valuation.
There you go. Anybody in the audience wants to chip in a couple of £1 million to Brian for his investment, we'll have a negotiation. Brian, I didn't realise you hadn't taken the money. So, Chris, I know are you still with Jenny?
Absolutely.
So, you've finished. You've done the recording. Jenny's made the offer. What happens next?
Well, there's obviously a period of due diligence, go through the finer detail. One of the things that the Dragons do, they get a full recording of the entire session. So, you know, I mentioned before, I was in for over 2 hours, and everything you say during that period, they have somebody check that, fact check it, they go through. So part of the due diligence is to make sure that you're not bullshitting on the den, basically. So if you make a claim that you've done this, or you've done that, you've achieved these sales or that sales, that's part of the due diligence. So you're told that before you go in, that everything you say will be checked, and that's part of that process. So that can take a little while. But for me, you know, the outcome was Jenny came back and said that I needed more money. So I said, right, okay, hold that thought. And I went off and got a venture capital company involved. So Jenny became a joint investor with a venture capital company on that seed round that we went through. So Jenny and I held hands and ran off into the sunset, basically. So no, she's still involved. She's on my board. She's on the end of a phone whenever I need it, on the end of an email whenever I need it. She's still heavily involved. I use her extensively as part of promoting our business and promoting our flagship product, which is going live next week. Next month. Quick plug that. So yeah, she's heavily involved and will be for at least a couple of years, I think, as we move towards our sort of exit strategy, etc. So yeah, I've had a very, very positive post Den experience in terms of the Dragons heavily involved. She's very down to earth, and like I say, she's always available. One of the things she always said to me was the other Dragons who've got a lot of investments don't have as much time. So what Peter Jones is, he's got 25, 30 other companies that he's invested on over the Den's history. He basically delegates a lot of what he does to the team that's around him. So you wouldn't necessarily get a lot of Jonesy's time or Deborah Meaden's time because of their longevity in the program, whereas Jenny was relatively fresh. He'd only invested in probably half a dozen of the businesses over her period on the Den, and because of that, I get direct access to her, which is one of the real benefits of having slightly lesser known Dragon, I guess.
That's absolutely right. I mean, that was one of the problems I had was you weren't getting Peter Jones, you were getting, you know, John Smith, which I was frustrated about because it was Peter Jones we wanted. We wanted to have that direct liaison with him.
Okay, I think it's interesting. So out of the four of you, actually, from what we see as an audience and the whole concept of a Dragon comes on board, brings some money and gets involved, only Jenny's the only one really that has delivered on that. Emmy, did you
Theo definitely. Well, you know, we were in the same office block as him, so we had a lot to do with the people on his team who are great. We had board meetings with Theo, so that was great. You know, he was a great person. He definitely had an interest and, you know, cared about what we were doing. And I think the fact that he wanted us to move into the next door office to him was a benefit. I suppose, you know, like everyone else was saying, they've got a lot of other projects going on, haven't they? So you're not going to be their sole priority. But yeah, I think Theo really made a go of it, and he definitely was supporting of us. And, you know, not great news for him, is it, when we get penalised in Google and we lose all of our traffic and all our money overnight and then we don't manage to recover. He ended up losing quite a lot of money, and he was gracious about it. And, you know, I think it was good, obviously, that the remaining money went to his foundation and everyone was happy, but I think he was good. Okay.
So two very simple questions. And we'll start with Emmy because we're talking to Emmy at the moment. A, would you do it again, knowing what you know now? And would you recommend anybody going on it?
I probably wouldn't do it again, only because I don't really want to do anything of that level again. And also I think having got investment with Theo and also helped other people secure investment and, you know, being in that world, I know the responsibility that you have to investors, and, you know, that you're taking on a big responsibility. You've then got a responsibility to deliver. And that is very different to running it as your own business and maybe having a lifestyle business and being able to make the choices that you want. So I think it very much depends on that. And would I recommend it to someone? I work with lots of clients and I help them secure funding. Normally that's kind of down more traditional routes. Would I suggest to go on Dragon's Den? I think it's great for the PR. It wasn't great for us, but like someone said, you know, if you get the equivalent of £1 million worth of PR for the right business, I think it could be really good. I don't think you necessarily get the good valuations. I think your valuation is going to be massively hampered. But yeah, I think it would totally depend on the business, but I would always warn anyone who takes any investment that you have got a responsibility to deliver to the investors, which is very different from when it's just your own business.
Yeah. Brian, would you go back on, and would you recommend anybody else going back on?
I'll let you into a little secret. So I've actually contacted the show not that long ago and see if they wanted to do a Dragon's Den first. I've come up with another product from, well, basically essentially sweating our asset. The bees are our asset. So we have a new offering coming to market called Apzer. And I wanted to see if we could go back on and do, you know, a Dragon's Den first, which is go for a fairly large, substantial ask. And they've come back and said, yeah, look, come down and speak to us.
So you're going to go on again?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. You know, it's better having the option than not have the option.
And would you, I didn't realize you were doing that because you didn't tell me that. Would you change your tactics at all?
I wouldn't shoot from the hip so much in terms of the negotiation side. I would take my time. I wouldn't be rushed, as rushed as I was with this one. So yeah, I think the pitch itself, I wouldn't change anything with that. I was comfortable with that, but actually the negotiation side of things, yeah, just take my time and really just listen to what the guys are saying and make sure I'm take my time to respond. And I think that was a bit gung ho that side last time. I said, you get lost in the white heat of the den.
And would you recommend anybody else goes on it?
I think you've got to weigh up the opportunity in terms of what it means to you and your business, and what, say, Emmy says, what style of business it is you want to have. You know, at the end of the day, those guys will want their pound of flesh for their investment. And it's whether you want to build a lifestyle business, or whether you're looking to build a business that's going to be of significant value and potentially something you want to sell in the future. And I just think you got to weigh that up for yourself. I would be up for it, of course. I absolutely love it. I think it's great. I think it's a great opportunity, great exposure. And we're not building a lifestyle business. We're building a business that we're building to sell. Right. Okay.
So Chris, yes, I assume you'd go back on because you got your money and you got Jenny. Would you recommend it to other people?
Answer the first question. Yes, I would go back on. Is it for everyone? No, it's pretty brutal. And the biggest thing you've got to, which you can't prepare yourself for, is the broadcast and the post-broadcast side of things. So there's a lot of attention around it. That's something some people would cope with better than others. So you have to be a certain animal to be able to deal with that. I think that's one of the challenges you'd face in going on the program. There's a lot of, maybe not back in Emmy's day, but now social media, you're damned as soon as you go on that program. Everybody's got an opinion about your business. Everybody's got an opinion about you. Totally. People were telling me that I was Phil Mitchell looking for 80 grand for the Queen Vic and stuff like that. So a lot of personal stuff, so there's a lot of stuff out there which people are posting, having a go. I was called a big sweaty lad and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of even deeper stuff. So that can take a toll, not just on you, but your loved ones around.
I think that's a good point. Really good point, Chris.
It
could impact your family, couldn't it? Really, because the things that they're saying, the things that people can say can be really mean.
Absolutely. My good lady didn't like it at all. She didn't like it. She would read one or two comments on social media and crumple and say, how can you deal with that? And I'd say, look, they don't know me. They're just sitting behind a keyboard. They're just having a go because it's easy to do, so it's that kind of, so that side of it, the fame, is quite tough, even though we're not famous. Although the paparazzi is outside my house every day.
And Mark, you already mentioned you got a load of grief from a competitor. So again, would you go on it, and would you recommend somebody else goes on it?
Well, I definitely recommend someone else goes on it, but Chris is right. You need to have a certain you need to have some part of your character that can rebuff some of those things. I think the best I got was Alan Carr and Michael Gove's Love Child. That was my favourite one. There was lots of those in there. They're quite funny actually. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of comments, and again, my wife, my dad, my mum, they were livid. They weren't happy, with people that don't know you at all, that talk about you, that talk about your business. And I really wasn't prepared for that, truth be told. I am a bit of a softie, and I was a bit like, why? What have we done? Why are they saying these things? But again, that comes back to the point on the fact that you don't realise how big the show actually is. And in terms of would I do it again? Yes, I would, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. But what I would do, and I'd say this to anybody that wants to go on the show, is that when we went on, we were very early stage. When the TV went out, when the program went out, we had a software platform that you couldn't buy online. It was you had to give us a call. We could get it online, and we thought we'd be manning the phones, taking calls and speaking to people. If we'd have got ourselves in a position where we could have our product off the shelf, if you could get yourself into a position where people can buy your product straight away and start using it straight away, or taking advantage of your product as soon as that TV program goes out, you're in a much better position to take advantage of the opportunity than you are if you're going in there with an idea that you're trying to take off. Not that the other ideas don't work, but if you're looking at it from a PR point of view, make sure you've got a product that you can take off the shelf. If you're ready to go and you can make sure you take advantage of that, you will see sales rocket. We're still seeing it now. People still see our old version of our show, and they will come back to us and they'll go, I saw you on Dragon's Den. I bought this, and we've had everyone from the FA to BAE Systems to Barclays, use the product for learning, development, and training based on a show that I did in 2017, which wasn't in it. The product isn't what it is now to what it was then, but they're checking us out because of that. But yeah,
Brian, just following up on that, as Chris called it, the fame. How did you find the sort of post-show fame?
Priceless. So I was actually mine was taken offline and actually into the physical world. So I remember one night it was quite late. Well, it was late evening, so it was dark. It was in Edinburgh. It was about probably 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and there's a group of about 20 people who were just standing at the zebra crossing to cross the road, and all of a sudden I just seen this movement coming through the crowd behind me. This hand grabs me and I pulled and I absolutely crap myself. And this guy just pulls me round and says, well done, man. So, it was really strange. I was in the waiting room in the doctor's surgery, and this guy was just kept sort of looking at me. And he just kept staring. I was like, my God, this guy's doing my head in. So I said, how can I help you? He says, yeah, I recognise you. I said, Dragon's Den. He says, that's where it is. So yeah, mine's crossed over into the physical world, which I thought was really amusing. As far as anybody giving me sort of slanderous comments or any issues, I'd none of that. Yeah, it was all really, really positive, and it could have gone the other way for me. It could have really gone the other way. It could have been really bad, but no, ours was really positive, and I thought it was really amusing how it crossed over into the physical world. Okay, that was quite funny. But I got frightened that night.
I think I started a couple of dates as well, so that was a positive. That's good for me.
I was going to say, just following up on that, I've got a question from Stuart Brown saying, are there any unforeseen or hidden benefits from having been on Dragon's Den, apart from being obviously Brian's world famous now? And Chris, any unforeseen benefits?
Yeah, definitely. You get a lot of interest from other potential investors. So that's the real big benefit. So whilst you might get knocked back by the Dragons, and at the time I was pitching, I'd already gone through quite a tough sort of 12 months or so trying to find investors. It does really open up that world to you, and that's a difficult world to navigate. And so that kind of exposure is really, really beneficial. So I was contacted, and I'm still in touch with lots of different investors who are keen to see how we
Okay, great. Mark, any unforeseen benefits?
I can actually add to that.
Sorry, Brian, go on, Brian.
Yeah, I've got a friend who was on Dragon's Den, who was rejected by all the dragons, and within 2 weeks of appearing on the show, received an offer from the post office for £2 million investment in business.
Wow, not bad. Mark, any unforeseen benefits that you've seen?
Yeah, similar. So mainly people talking about it. It's still, the video is still on YouTube. It's still being watched from all over the world. I mean, one of the strangest things that happened is Quizbit's now being used in South Africa to do training for a corporate company that had seen it on YouTube. So the benefits sort of keep coming as such. There is an investment benefit. The investors that still speak to us, and again, we're negotiating actually with a couple at the minute what we're looking at. But the main thing really is it's part of our backstory now. And so, when anybody asks, you've got a story to tell. And people do ask you, they do want to know, or they want to know where you are now. So, when I did Dragon's Den, there was me and someone else, in a bench, a part of NatWest Accelerator. There's 7 of us now, with revenues and lots of customers. So it's good to.
Emmy, it's interesting. Mark says it's part of his backstory, because I know you weren't sure as to whether you should, historically you sort of hid it away as part of your backstory, but now you're sort of bringing it back
I'm happy
out.
to talk about it now, because I think, we should all embrace failure, and I learned a huge amount. And I also want, to, none of us are perfect, are we? It's good to understand that you can have a failure. And then, we went on to have 3 very successful businesses, and we did really, really well. So I think, it is part of my backstory. I should talk about it more. I think one of the benefits for me is the fact that I secured, at the time, it was the largest ever investment ever on Dragon's Den. And to have been through that process, I now can empathize and understand and work with my clients who are also looking to secure funding. And, I've been there, I've been through that process, and I understand it. And I think that for me is very helpful in the work that I do. And yeah, I suppose, like Mark was saying, it is my story, and I should talk about it more, because that's what people are interested in. They want to know that story, and they want to know that you had the courage to get up and go back and, just get going and do something else and make a success of that. And I should talk about it more. And thank you for inviting me on this, so that I have to relive it and start remembering what happened.
And you have to watch it. I've sent you a clip of it. You've got to watch it.
I know, I will do. I'll watch it with my children, maybe. They'd probably like it. They'd probably laugh. I mean, yeah, it's just watching yourself when you're 27 and just looking and thinking, oh my God, that was a long time ago.
Can I just add one
yeah, of course you can, Chris, far away.
My son actually studied my episode in his business studies class, which was great for me, but he got an absolute kicking from all his mates. So that was a hidden benefit for me to rip the piss out of my boy.
Yeah.
Just on the hidden benefits, I mean, you go on there not just for the cash. A hidden benefit for us was validation.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, we had 5 dragons. You can go on there and they can say all 5 of them can see your product's crap, which is, of course, is going to be a disaster. But if you're there and you're in the den, you believe in your product. Validation it goes a long way. So all of a sudden I've got 5 industry experts saying, you know what, Brian, this is a good idea. We like it. We're interested in investing. That in itself carries a lot of weight. You go into future investors' offices. Well, these 5 guys here, they say it's great. Invest in the back of them. So validation was a big benefit for us.
Fantastic. I'm very conscious that we've overrun on time, and I know specifically Emmy and Mark have got to get off. So can I say a huge thank you to Chris, Mark, Brian and Emmy. I hope everybody who's watching has really enjoyed it, and thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.
See you all.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Mark, I might have a contact for you.
Fab.
SG Gaming. Drop me an email. Bye.
Will do. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Benefit. See you.